Today on Conversations Aloud, we're discussing whether the systems that humanity depend on, such as capitalism and the education system, are harming us or helping us. We're joined by Alex Kain, who is an entrepreneur and the author of The Philosophy, which is more than just a book. It's a movement centered around the radical but necessary idea of questioning everything. And I think we're all waking up to the need of questioning everything. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thanks, Hattie, for having me.
Great to have you. So, Alex, there's two dominant narratives in our world today. One is that we're living in the most advanced, prosperous era in human history. And the other is that we've never been more disconnected, we've never been more anxious and broken. Where do you stand on this?
Well, look, I tend to agree with you. I think we are connected in technology, definitely, but socially, I think we're very disconnected. And you feel that when you see people going to work, coming home, driving into their house, into the garage, locking the doors, turning on the security cameras, and really not even associating with people who live right around them. And when you think that this was our village, this was, the people we cohabited and shared a similar life with, we don't do that anymore. And it's a real shame.
Why is that? Why don't we do? Is it just we don't have time to do that?
Well, I think that's an excuse. I think there's always enough time to go and knock on the neighbor's door and say hello, or in my case, g'day. I think we're either scared or we're even worse, disinterested. And it's a worry that we've made the decision that people who aren't like us or us are people that we don't need to associate with because we've just decided that ours and us are all we really care about. Many people just live a very myopic life. And I'm suggesting we need a bit more social responsibility, social cohesion. And that can only happen through breaking down walls and getting to know each other. And from that can come respect. And that's almost the basis of the philosophy.
Mm. Yeah, I think there's a big debate now about social cohesion, especially as a lot of countries are having a very quick demographic change, which kind of goes back to your point of now there are people that maybe we don't fully understand as before, and therefore it takes a bit more effort to reach out your hand and try to understand. And so I think a lot of countries are facing that. What made you want to start questioning these systems that we live in that so many people just accept? Was there a moment that shifted your mindset?
I don't think it was a moment as such. I think it's just been a progressive journey in my life of seeing the world as it is and questioning things. But it's the shift is really taking it from questioning it into my own head and doing something more with it. My background is in software development. And so I'm quite used to working with organizations and businesses and looking at their systems and processes and looking at whether they're optimized and are they doing the best that they can do. And I think that same skill set I've brought to bear on looking at society and analyzing society systems and questioning, is this the best that we can do?
And why do you feel it's not the best that we could do?
Well, look around. There are very few people who would say we're living in utopia right now. I think there are so many pressures to bear globally, locally. I think we're facing a world that is just divided. And, you can say it's left versus right. You can say it's white versus black. You can say it's a whole lot of things. The problem that we face is it's just so many of them, It's hard to articulate because it's such a big problem. And that's why so many people feel helpless, because it's like, well, what can I do to change this? These are big structural problems, structure in society. And I'm saying, well, hang on a minute. If we don't stand up and choose to change them, we're just enabling them. So they'll continue to exist. And for me, that's just not good enough.
Yeah. Do you feel that the government needs to take more of a step in to kind of create that social cohesion, or do you feel like it's our responsibility all as individuals to do that?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. I think, government which is flawed already, is supposed to represent us. So it needs to come from us. Now, that's not to say that government will reflect, everything that we say, but they're certainly not going to take notice of anything that's potentially challenging the status quo if there isn't a grassroots movement to suggest that maybe it's time for change. So it does start with us, and it's a case of question everything. Are the systems that govern society making sense? Does capitalism make sense? Does the way we define success make sense? The economy, so many people are hurting in the economy, how it operates. Does it make sense to keep running it how we're running it? Because often the answer is, well, that's the way we've always done it. And again, for me, that's just not a good enough answer.
Yeah. Just talking about capitalism, capitalism is often credited with lifting hundreds of millions out of poverty. It fuels innovation, even some say increases life expectancy. Do you see it as failing humanity? And if so, in what way?
Look, as you rightly say, capitalism is responsible for driving innovation and driving motivation for people to want to do things. My issue with capitalism isn't that, because motivation is a good thing. But the motivation in a capitalist society is wealth. Why aren't we motivated to find cures for diseases because it's the right thing to do for the world? Why aren't we creating new technologies because it's enhancing life for everyone? We're doing it because there's profits. And because that's the goal that we're chasing, the things that we compromise to get there are where I have the real concern. So and I talk in the book about true north versus magnetic north. Often we know something to be a true north feeling, whether it's loyalty or there's certain values that we just know deep down, this is the right thing to do. And yet at the same time, we may go a different direction because profits are involved, politics are involved, other agendas are involved. And we deviate from what we truly know to be right. And it's often because we're driven because of this need to compete. And capitalism is a competitive model, right? We have to survive. And then to survive, we have to thrive. And then we have to keep building and building. And I quote in the book, the model Donut Economics. I don't know if you've heard of that. Kate Rayworth wrote a book called Donut Economics. And it's effectively saying that, there is a sustainable area that we should live in the donut model. In the hole, people are falling through the gaps. Outside of the donut, we're living beyond the means of sustainability for the world to support us. That sweet spot is the donut itself. The problem we face in a capitalist society is the need for continual growth. Now, nothing else in the world grows forever. But we say that a business that is successful is one that grew more this year than it did last year. Now, how long can you keep growing indefinitely for? Something has to take a toll because of that.
Yeah. Okay. So you said there kind of, competition, growth, focusing on those things might come with harm. Um, is there a way where we can continue to because the way I see it is competition can be great. It can push us to really innovate and not be too lethargic and kind of create urgency to create great things that humanity, really benefits from. At the same time, we also create things that doesn't really benefit us. And I feel like that's the toxic part of capitalism, whereby there's this kind of machine that tries to convince us to buy things that we think will fill a gap within us, but it doesn't end up filling any gap. We're just buying things for the sake of buying things on this kind of roller coaster. So how can we kind of continue to have that competition that I think is great for innovation, but also fill the gap within us in a better way other than just profit, 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 or money, money, money?
Yeah, great question. Now, what I'm talking about probably sounds crazy to a lot of people. It sounds very utopian, and it's like, well, why people need money? Why else would they do it? So you talked about the benefits of competition. Why can't we be competitive because we're bettering humanity? That's still competitive. You could have teams racing against each other to find cures for cancer. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm saying the goal that is money as the thing everyone's chasing is where we have a problem. Now, it doesn't make sense, my model, if you look at what I'm saying in isolation. And so the philosophy is really a whole series of changes that need to happen. So let's say one of the other controversial ideas in the book, I talk about a universal basic income, right? So basically everyone has a minimum level of sustainability, I guess, let's call it that. So enough to give people a roof over their head and food so that they can survive. Because we talk about, going to work, we call that earning a living. But if you break that down, that just means earn to live. So when we're born, we are encumbered with this need to have to work just to survive. I'm not talking about thriving, we're talking about just surviving. So many of us will spend our lives working 5-6 days a week to bring in enough to put food on the table. We're not that different from animals, right? You watch birds all day. They're just walking around searching for food all day. We're walking around working all day so we can get the money to buy the food. We're not that different, right? We dress it up, but we're not. So I'm saying a whole lot of things have to change. So if every single person had a basic level of income to survive, and that was now a foundation for everyone, you could choose whether you wanted to continue to work or whether you wanted to paint all day or write music or whatever, because it gives you joy. Now, then you say, well, I want to find a cure for cancer. It's not because I'm chasing big money. I've got all the money I need to live off. But now I actually want to do something for the world, right? Will we define work as being meaningful in the world? But I would like to say maybe we need a different currency, and it's not work as such, but it's contribution. So I could provide volunteer work. I could look after my elderly parents. I could do things like that. It's not work, but I'm contributing to the fabric of society. So we need to redefine what that looks like as well. So there's a whole lot of things that would need to work together for what I'm talking about to make sense. But imagine every single person has a minimum level of okay. So no one's suffering anymore. They can eat. They can have a roof over there. We might eradicate homelessness and poverty just from that. Now, if you want to work, you choose to work. If you don't want to work, you go and do other things. You won't necessarily have a luxurious life, but if your choice is what's meaningful to me in this world is to do something that brings me joy and maybe look after a few other people without necessarily being paid for it, then that's what's meaningful to me. That's my life. I'm no longer encumbered by the need to go and earn money, potentially in a job that I don't enjoy, just to put food on the table. That's what I'm saying. Let's reimagine why we're even here.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think a lot of people will hear universal basic income and think, does that work with human behavior? Because if people have an income, some people will obviously leverage that beautiful thing of not needing to do something that you don't like just to earn an income. And you can focus on things that you're passionate about, things that contribute to humanity. But there's also a large section of society that will take that income and allow them not to contribute anything, and get them stuck maybe into a drug habit or anything like that because of that human behavior, which happens today in our society, where people sometimes do get an income without working, and that results in those things. Do you see that as a problem of that system, and is there a solution to that?
Well, look, again, I'm not talking about giving people, hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend willy-nilly. What we're seeing is some people have not enough money to even eat or have a roof over their head, right? And while others have extreme wealth. There's something wrong with that, right? And it's part of the reason why I wrote the book is that, I was following the same model of success that had been modeled to me, like we all have. We see it on TV, in the magazines. This is wealth. This is everything flashy. But what I found is as I was going through my career and I was achieving a level of success, it felt a little bit hollow to me because I didn't see that success for me meant leaving others behind. I didn't feel successful when I knew that the rest of the world, or a lot of people in the world, were doing it so tough. So I talk in the book about redefining success as well. When we start to think differently about everything, suddenly what I'm saying starts to make a bit more sense. On its own, it just sounds irrational. Let some people just not work. Let them paint all day, but give them money anyway. That's crazy talk. This guy's on something special. But the truth is, we've only said that you have to work because that's the model that's been created. But there are so many things we've constructed in this world that they're all man-made. Like we look at money. Money's man-made. A piece of paper or plastic has no intrinsic value. We've all agreed it holds value. That's the only reason it still exists. The same with country borders. We've just drawn a line. They weren't there from the beginning. We've created them. We've also created work as the method for surviving, but it doesn't have to be. The opening line in my book is, what's the point? Like, what's the point of life? Is it to work? I don't know anyone who's been on their deathbed and said, I should have worked more. I should have been in the office longer. No, I think we've missed it. It's been sold to us this way, that this is what we need to do, but it doesn't have to be this way.
Do you think that within us because a lot of people say within us that there is this need to be of value, right? And we get that from working. By working, we feel valued, we feel like we're contributing, and it's a thing that feeds our, you could say soul or whatever it is, that is necessary. Remove work, remove being valued, and then you start to get into a cycle of.
I disagree with you. You're equating work with value. There are other ways to achieve value. Volunteering is value, and it's contribution, and it's meaningful. In fact,
right. So when you say work, you mean like career work, as opposed to actual work. Like volunteer work is still work, right? But
yeah.
but you're saying when you say work, you're talking about like career work.
Well, I'm asking you, what are you saying when you say work? Are you talking about having a job? Is that better?
Yeah, a job. Yeah, I think, yeah, job. I would say that's what I meant. Job.
Yeah. And so I don't see a job as something that we have to have. As I say, there are so many ways to contribute in society. You go to an aged care facility and bring joy to people there. That's contributing to the fabric of society. You may not be paid for it. It may not be viewed as a salaried job, but you're bringing joy maybe for yourself and for others. That to me is contribution. And I think that's what currency needs to be. It needs to be contribution. It's not about earning money. And, we frown upon people who aren't earning money, but there are other ways to contribute.
Yeah. Do you feel that people can have true well-being without wealth, especially in today's world of inflation, housing crisis, skyrocketing costs? Is that like a realistic idea? Because that's
No, it's not.
most.
No, you can't. Absolutely. You said it. In today's world, you can't. I'm not talking about doing these things in today's world. I'm talking about tomorrow's world. So we create a world where money is no longer the thing that we all desire. I remember in the 80s when the movie Wall Street came out with Michael Douglas, and, the saying, greed is good. It was one of those movies you watched and you saw it was typical of what was happening at the time. But then there was a pushback on it. Like the whole greed is good thing became almost a poison chalice. And people started to think, oh, this is a little bit too self-indulgent. And I think when we redefine what success actually means, and that it's not tied to profits, growth, extreme wealth, I think we'll start to see a change in a number of different areas of society. And it's just for us to have the freedom to take the shackles off from our current existence and explore an alternative. And that's really all I'm saying is let's explore what else there could be. Because I think we're just too tied to what exists today. And it's probably hurting us because we can't even see another way.
Yeah, I think the struggle for a lot of people is that they have that mindset of, okay, if I work hard, then I can get profits, and why not? I could still align, working with contributing. So I'm working, I'm contributing, and I'm creating wealth. And if profit is the driver that if we could align profits with well-being of society, perfect. Do you see that way, or is that also an unrealistic thing that never happens?
Well, I just see it as it's a symptom of how we operate today. So it's like when people say, yeah, but there's nothing wrong with extreme wealth. A lot of wealthy people give a lot to charity. And I'm saying, yeah, because we're enabling that model to exist. But charity has to happen because there's a need for it. I'm trying to get rid of the need to even have charity. Why do we have to give to people who don't have? Why can't we just make people who don't have? You know, it's like all we're doing is continuing to enable the same cycle where there's the haves and the have-nots, and the haves might throw some crumbs at the have-nots, and we say, thank goodness we have the haves. But to me, that doesn't make any sense. It's the tail wagging the dog.
Mm. So the system that you're proposing is that not that everyone earns the same, but there is a basic kind of like net of income that everyone receives, but then there is still you could still earn more than that by contributing more to society.
That's right. And so what it is a safety net for everyone. So there's a minimum quality of life that everyone is entitled to as a human right, right? Again, when I was brought into this world, I had no say in it. And yet now I'm lumbered with the idea that I have to work to earn my food and a roof over my head. I'm saying that feels very archaic to me. We're a society that's failed to level up. We're still stuck doing things because that's the way it's been done. Um, you know, I look at our education system and it's just a throwback from the Industrial Revolution. You know, we're mass producing as many people as we can to push them through to contribute to our GDP. Now, is that really the reason we're here? You know, is it all about the economy? Um, it saddens me that this is what we've done with education. Teach them all the subject matter, push them out, contribute to the economy. I'm suggesting the way we alter society is through a completely overhauled education system. So education becomes not just an institution you go to learn subject matter, but it becomes an incubator where we can nurture great human beings. It is the single touch point that every person on the planet can be exposed to. Yes, we say, of course, you should learn values in the home, but we've got no controls over what people learn in their homes. Is it consistent? Does everyone get the same teachings? No, of course not. But we could do that through the education system so that poverty, homelessness, domestic violence, if you're learning things like respect all the way along from being preschool right through your whole schooling life, it'd be very difficult to come out at the end of that and then go and join a gang and start, you know, committing aggravated burglaries on people. So I'm saying that we can change society. It's not an overnight fix. It's a multi-generational approach. But if we don't start now, if we don't draw the line in the sand, we just keep enabling and we keep treating symptoms. We keep feeding the homeless, right? We keep giving charity to the poor, but we're not actually solving it. We keep it going and we treat the symptom. I'm saying if we taught respect to every single child, then they become the next generation of parents. And then the next generation of kids that come through, when they come home after school, their parents have already been brought up in the way of the philosophy. They've got two generations who are thinking similarly about how we should treat each other and the planet. It starts to slowly change the world, but it's not an overnight fix and it's not an easy task, but that's how I see the way we're actually going to change things.
Mm. And if you wanted to change, because a lot of people in a lot of people's mind, if you speak to them, especially the younger they are, is how do I make more money? How do I become rich? What would you like that to be? What kind of question would they be asking themselves instead?
Well, how can I be the best version of myself? The cover of my book, The Philosophy, there it is. You can see the picture here. This is effectively Maslow's hierarchy, right? So we're all here covering our basic needs. And We're in a rush to get to the top. Let's self-actualize and be the best we can. But we often do that without, we're just running to the top ourselves. I'm suggesting a new model where we're taking each other up with us. That's what the philosophy is about, because it's actually selfishly good for us to help others. But we don't see it that way. We just stay in our own lane and we keep, racing to the top for ourselves and our family and our close ones. But everyone else, stuff them. And it's just because we're so competitive. And I'm saying that capitalism breeds that competitive nature because we need to succeed. And we don't all hold hands and go up together. No, I've got my career, my life, my goals, my retirement fund. We're all in it for ourselves to get somewhere. And I'm saying that way of thinking is actually hurting us seriously.
Mm. Yeah, it's there's beautiful things from competition, but as you said, there's this also ugly part of competition where you just focus on yourself. It's me, myself, and I. And if it's kind of if they win, I'm losing. If I win, they're losing kind of mentality, instead of how do we create win-win situations. How do we, if they're rising up, then I'm rising up, and if I'm rising up, they're rising up, kind of environment. But that's I think the main issue with capitalism, especially when it's on steroids. Like I feel like in the US, you see that, is how can I suck the most out of people for my benefit. And
And as
that's
you're saying that, doesn't it just feel toxic? Just that's the way we view getting ahead, is to do it at other people's expense. It feels really yucky. I have a knot in my stomach as just saying that, just to think that this is how we do it. And we are competitive. And it's very sad that we need to do that. And here in Australia, we have something that's called the tall poppy syndrome. If anyone's getting too big for their boots, you chop them down, right? So if you're too successful, you're too famous, you're too this, tear them down in the media, do something to bring them down. And that is just coming from feels to me like a very primitive part of the brain where, even though we have so much abundance, we're still living in this scarcity mindset that if someone else gets something, then that's less I've got for me. And I'm saying that is wrong, and we need to reprogram it, and we can reprogram it. I talk in the book, I have a chapter called The Human Operating System, because effectively what we're saying is, and you asked that question, can we change? Is it human nature, or are we even capable of this change? And I'm suggesting yes. I'm saying that there is our operating system, which is, like Windows or Mac, which really just tells us how to operate in the world. But what we actually choose to do, that's the programs that we run. Those programs we can change. We can choose what programs we run. We may not be able to change the operating system so much, but we can change those programs. And that's choices that we need to make. But if you have filters or you see the world through particular lenses, then the programs you run are going to reflect that. And you're going to have an echo chamber of programs running. And that's why people congregate with other people who are similar. I mean, that's why, young people join gangs. There's a sense of belonging, because all of a sudden you've got this shared sense of goals and ambitions, or whatever it is. And I'm saying that the only way that we can change society is that we all start running different programs. But how do you run programs if you're already running a corrupt program? Well, you don't have the awareness, do you? Because you already got the biases already telling you what's real and what's right in the world. So the philosophy is based on 4 relationships. I'll go into this now because there's 4 relationships. The first relationship is our relationship with the universe, right? Which is, do we have gratitude for the amazing planet, universe, that human bodies, everything that we are? And I think if you have gratitude, it's very hard to be disrespectful to other people. So learning gratitude is the first thing. The second relationship is our relationship with ourselves. Are we fully aware of our triggers, our filters, our patterns, the autopilot that we often run on without even stopping to think? If you don't have that self-awareness, you can't change anything, because everything is just right, because you know best anyway, right? The third relationship is our relationship with our inner circle. That's friends, family, people that we deal with. We often treat them the worst. We might treat a stranger better than we treat someone who's close to us because either those filters that we're running or just how we feel on the day. And then finally, the fourth relationship is our relationship with community. And that's people who might live at the other end of the street who you've never met, or people on the other side of the world. We're all connected by an invisible thread called humanity. And yet, sometimes you just wouldn't know it.
100%. I can. We've all experienced those moments where it feels like there is that disconnection that people have lost, and it's such a vital thing for not just for growth. I think it's just a fabric of our being to be connected. And I think you mentioned there really important things, which is gratitude. It's very hard if you've got love within you, gratitude within you, to then not spread that across. You just want to kind of share that with people. I think a lot of times it's very hard to be grateful for things because we just don't understand how beautiful it is because we haven't lost it. It's only when we lose those things do we actually feel very grateful for. It's the same thing as it's only when I'm ill and sick do I appreciate health and be like, oh my God, it's just amazing just to breathe normally is amazing. But there are
And
other.
that's sad too, right? That it's not until you're in that precarious situation that you realize what you already had in your hand, but never failed to appreciate. And that comes from resetting the way you view the world. That's our relationship with ourselves. And if you become more aware of all of that, every day is a miracle,
Mm.
right? That you have. Every person is a miracle. I mean, you think about how the human body is put together. Every organ is incredible. Like it's just so miraculous. And yet we could treat a person who is a miracle in essence so poorly. And it doesn't make sense because, well, we just take it for granted. We often complain that we didn't get upgraded on the plane to business class, but never stop to think that it's a miracle that we're even in the air,
Yeah.
to begin with. So
That journey that used to take 20, 30 days, 40 days to travel, now we can do in 8 hours.
that's it. But
Amazing.
we just expect we're entitled. Of course we have this. This is the time that we live in, and I should have all these things. And then when you don't get them, you just complain about it instead of appreciating what you actually have. And that's really just a matter of perspective and thinking. But unless you stop yourself and you train yourself to think differently, you'll just run on autopilot and just complain and complain and complain because you're entitled to everything that the world has to offer you.
Yeah. Do you feel that most people are not alive in the present moment? They're either focused on the past or they're thinking about the future. And I think that's one of the also things, if I'm being honest, I think there's beautiful things.
Here comes a confession. Come on, Hardy. I feel one coming now.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm against capitalism because I think there's great things from it. I just also see the toxic parts. But one of the toxic parts also is this kind of the relationship we have with time and it's also coming from competition that we're always behind, and so you cannot live in the present moment because you're always thinking about what's next. How do I need to go ahead? And so it's always a future thing. You're always in the future. And so you're never present to appreciate anything and be aware of what's happening around you, really be aware of what's happening around you, not just react to things because of that relationship we have with time.
Right. But I think it's also, I mean, the mobile phone has a lot to answer for, right? And what's really hard is when you go to a beautiful place or you're watching fireworks, and instead of looking up, you've got your phone in front of you filming the fire, and you're looking at the screen.
Yeah.
It's like you're not there. You're saving it for later. You're banking it so you can relive the experience, but you never actually had the experience.
Yeah.
So we're missing that. It's so sad,
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's the kind of, I guess, daily practice or mindset shift that, you suggest if someone's listening to this right now, they can adopt to start reclaiming their well-being from this broken system? I know you mentioned there the four things, but how can people start doing this?
Well, look, a very simple thing you can do is, well, you could do mindfulness, right? If you could practice mindfulness and just stop and be present. I think that's something that's very easy for everyone to do. But do you feel motivated to want to do that? Do you think your life's fine the way it is? It's whether you want to do that. Another thing you can do is go and meet your neighbors. It's so sad that, we come home and we lock ourselves up and we're good. And yet our neighbors are people that we share the same air with, and we, potentially should have each other's backs. But often we might know people either side of us, maybe we had a dispute about a tree or something, and that's about it. But
Yeah.
you've got people around you who maybe they're not your people or the people you would normally associate with in your friendship group, but maybe they're people of value and people worth getting to know from diverse backgrounds. Maybe you will level up by doing that, but we're scared. We're worried about meeting people who are different than us because we fear, we're going to be taken advantage of. Is someone going to harm us? But if we do that, all we do is lock ourselves down and close ourselves off. And then we're not capable anymore of connecting. So love opens us and connects us. The opposite is also true. So we need to sometimes step out of our comfort zone and go and talk to people. Go and talk to a homeless person. Don't just walk past them and think, there, but for the grace of God go I. And let them term homeless people. They're not a group. They've all got a life story. They're all individuals. They're not homeless people. So it's just thinking differently about the world that we live in. There's a chapter in my book called The Magic Glasses. And really what it's talking about is, if you've ever tried augmented reality glasses, right? I can hold my hand out and you'll see my hand. But if I'm wearing the glasses, I might see an elephant dancing in my hand. No one else will see it. I'll see it. Why? Because I have the ability to see it now. If I take the glasses off, I don't see it. So it's really about learning the techniques that allows us to see this alternative reality that's right around us every day. But we can choose whether we take the blue pill or the red pill. The choice is always ours. But if you don't even know that there's a red pill, you only ever have the blue pill option.
Yeah, I think most people really don't realize that we automatically distort reality based on our past experiences. The question becomes,
Well, there is no reality. There's our reality. It's always our reality.
yeah, 100%. What gives you hope that we can redesign the system to be more human, to be more sustainable and more free?
I think what gives me hope is people telling me that they agree with everything I've written about in the book. They don't disagree with what I'm saying. The questions are always how. How are we going to make it happen? The reassuring thing is that everyone agrees on the what. We do want a better world. We do want a fairer world. We want these things. It's always about how do we make it happen. So that's the first step. Having a destination in your GPS is the first step to even getting anywhere, right? If we didn't have that, we're just wandering. So now we've got a destination. Now, you might say that destination, it's just so way out there. Okay, maybe you don't agree with everything I'm saying. So maybe here's the destination, but maybe you're prepared to come to here. Great, let's put here in the GPS and let's walk the rest of the way. It's not about, I've got all the answers. I've got a ton of questions and I just want everyone else to be asking the same questions. So if we have the ability to start questioning things, we might start to change them. But if we think they're not changeable or movable, then we're stuck living in that paradigm because we accept that this is all there is. And I'm saying, I don't believe this is all there is.
100%. So what you're saying is that, even though it might feel like we're stuck in this system, change actually starts with you taking these small steps of being aware, of connecting with the people around you, which we're all surrounded by other people that we can connect with. And it's those steps that allow us to move in the right direction when we're taking actions on a daily basis, because those are the things that create our world is the actions that we take. And if we're kind of becoming more aware and more, need connecting better with people around us, then we'll take different actions that will lead to that world.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And it's like, I'm not a huge fan of Trump. Okay. I'll put it out there. But what I do like about what he's done is he's shaken up the belief that certain things can't change, right? It's that volatility that anything can change. You get a tariff, whatever, however you want to do it. It's
Yeah.
like maybe things that we thought were just stuck aren't necessarily stuck. And on a big scale, he's shown us that it's possible to just shake things up.
Yeah, think outside of the box, because sometimes we're so inside the box for so long, we just cannot even imagine things outside of it. And sometimes we do need a shake up to think like that.
I'll give you an example. This is, I talk about the idea that, when we had high inflation, we had to raise interest rates, right? So it would try and bring inflation down. Now, to me, that doesn't make any sense at all. If you've got high inflation and we say that's a bad thing, and I'm still yet to be proven why that's a bad thing, but let's say you got inflation, it's a bad thing. We need to combat it, right? It's the enemy. So let's put interest rates up. Okay, interest rates go up. Who do they affect? Mortgage holders. Mortgage holders are people who usually don't have a lot of free cash. That's why they're borrowed money. People, however, who have money sitting in the bank now earn more interest. Oh, there's more money we can spend. What does spending do? Drives up inflation. Doesn't make any sense. There are other ways to combat inflation. If you ask, what is inflation? Inflation is the increasing cost of goods and services, right? That's technically what inflation is. So why do they have to keep going up? Why do things have to keep going up in price? Again, man-made. We don't have to put things up in price. A rock in the ground, it's free. Doesn't cost anything. But now we say, okay, this now costs this, and it costed this yesterday, but now costs more today. And now the person who's going to dig that up for you, we paid him this, now we're going to pay him more tomorrow. And I keep saying, these are man-made things that we are making decisions on. We don't have to put up prices. We don't even have to charge anything for this. It doesn't have an intrinsic cost, right? We've just decided this has a cost. Same with wages. Why don't we just all agree, let's keep wages where they are? Why do they have to keep going up? Let's keep everything at the same price so nothing needs to go up. Wages need to go up to keep up with inflation, which means more cost of goods. Well, let's keep the cost of goods at the same rate and let's keep wages at the same rate. Then there's no inflation. I know it sounds simplistic and crazy, but you think about it, would that not stop inflation?
Yeah. The issue is the money printing that happens, and we create into existence a lot of new money that follows a similar amount of goods, raising those prices up, and that's because of one, the central bank printing money, and it's two, the fractional reserve banking system, where the banks loan money out, which kind of creates new money. Basically, every time a bank loans money out, it's new money being created, because the deposits that they have, they're not matching that up with the loans that they're.
But what I'm hearing, Hadi, is more man-made things. They're making more money. They're doing it. Well, let's make the decision to stop it. You're telling me how things are today, and I understand it. I'm saying forget that for a minute. Let's not print more money. Let's not put up prices. Let's all around the world agree this is what we're all going to do, and that way we can stop the suffering. Why couldn't we do that? Of course we could, but we won't.
Yeah, there's I think a lot of people need to come together to make those decisions, and maybe with time we will get there. But as you said, it starts with the first few steps that we all can do today. Alex, it's been great speaking to you. If people wanted to find your book, one, you obviously spoke a lot about it right now, but what would they really get from the book, and where can they find it?
So look, I hope they'll get the idea of challenging their thinking, right? I don't expect people are going to love everything I've written in there, and there may be some things you'll get angry about. You might throw the book at me, whatever it is, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind that. I love the idea that I'm challenging people, and I don't care whether you love it, you hate it, as long as you're thinking about it, right? And you may come up with better ideas than I propose, and that's great. That's what this is about. It's starting conversations. So if people if people start talking about this, go and meet your neighbor and talk to them about the book. Okay. Then you can do two things at once. But seriously, it's an opportunity for people to start having discussions about things that we really should be talking about, and rather than just accepting. If anyone wants to get their hands on the book, you can get it from Amazon. There's a number of other places. It comes in paperback, audiobook, and Kindle format. The easiest way to find out everything about the book is go to the website. It is thephilosophy.net. And that's the website that's got information about the book and where you can buy it. But there's also, you can join our online community. So there is a community platform where you can join. It's free to join, and you can become part of the conversation and just interact with other people to discuss some of these concepts.
Beautiful. And we'll put those in the show notes. Alex, it's been great speaking to you, and hopefully we can do this again.
Thanks, Ali. Really enjoyed it.